Welcome, everybody. Today we're gathered because all of us in one way or another were blessed by Mr. Puri's love, friendship, wisdom, humor. I'm very grateful for all those wonderful experiences. Over the next 3 months, Pranay, Saravanan and myself will share some stories about our experiences with Mr. Puri and our understanding about the path of Satmat. So yeah, we'll see how we go. Cezary Ji will join us after the break. He'll talk for a little while, and then we'll have another break, and then see what eventuates after that. So today I'd like to introduce you to Saravanan, who will talk first, unless Pranay has something else he'd like to say to begin with.
Sure. We've, if you notice the Bandara, our master's Bandara, Mr Puri Ji Bandara, we had a similar discussion in the first hour, and what we've noticed was what we've noticed. Nick had received a message just 10 minutes prior to the Bandara actually starting, that Cezary Ji would join us. Be actually joining us an hour later. So the three of us, four of us, ended up talking, sharing stories, and this is how it went. A few days ago, Cezary Ji did send the three of us a message, Nick, Lina, Saravanan, and myself, saying that there's a Moj, and we should be conducting the Satsang for the first 3 months until the Bandara. And we're very if Nick, the three of us were of course taken aback with this message, but the word Moj is a very serious word and a very tricky word, at least from what I understand, in terms of the will of the master, or the final word of the master. Of course, mentally, it's from the concept of the mind. It's very the discussions did take place. So here we are. Cezary Ji would join us a little while later, probably an hour into this satsang. After which we'd have a break, and as Nick mentioned, we would speak for a little while more and then conclude the same. However, we are very happy that we have friends joining us from different parts of the world, and towards the end, we'd really be happy if you have any questions with regard to what we have shared so far. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Saravanan, and we look forward to hear what he has to say.
Hi everyone.
Radhaswami.
Okay, I'm just gonna put this into gallery view because it feels a bit weird looking at myself talking. Okay, so so we got the message, and Cezary Ji actually asked us to share some of our experiences. And usually it's a spring attack. You just got to know it. That's like a few minutes before, and you got to come up with something, and it's usually done spontaneously. And this time, you got some time to prepare for it, and I do not know if it was any easier because you now have to think of something. How are you going to describe your experiences with the master, which is for me, which is Mr. Puri. And it is not so simple to describe the kind of experiences you could have with a Sant guru. And while I was thinking it, I was going through my head and trying to go through all the experiences I had, and I realized I should just do what I always do, just leave it to the master. And that's what I've been doing ever since I actually got a deal from him, the same deal that he got from his master, great master. And what better experience to share with, other than the journey that actually led to it, right? So I actually don't speak a lot, actually. I find it hard to actually speak in public, even if it's in Zoom. I find it hard to speak, and usually at work I have to do a lot of this speaking as well. And in a government job, you are required to talk to sometime of the top brass and management and sort of this. You have to give this kind of presentations and sometimes a technical report. And what do I do now is actually I just leave it to the master. So when I first heard of the deal, if you listen to Master Satsang, and he talks about the deal that he had with his great master, and I'm like, wow, that is an awesome deal. You are not going to get this deal anywhere, because if you look at any other system, they don't tell you that you give all the worries to the master and master takes care of everything. They tell you you have to go through everything, and whatever good you get out of it is based on whoever gives it to you. This is something special, actually. And I wanted to get this deal for myself. So I think it was in 2017. This was in Chicago, the Hilton Hotel, where they had the Bandara. And I believe Grace Ji and Cezary Ji were there as well, if I'm not wrong. And so I was thinking, probably if I was going to ask him for this deal, he's probably going to say, you got to meet these requirements, you probably have to do this, and so forth and so more. But when I went in and asked him, he said, okay. And it was so simple, because it is so easy for the master to actually fulfill his part of the promise. And it was, despite hearing this many times, I actually underestimated how hard it can be from the devotee side, actually. So the moment I walked out of the room, I felt really strange because I had no worries. And I started asking myself, is this normal? Am I not supposed to have worry? And then I started worrying about not having worries. So I wrote in to Mr. Puri after that straight away, and I asked him, thank you, Master, thank you for the deal and everything. Now it's so good. I don't have worry, but it feels very strange. It doesn't even feel normal. Now I'm worrying that I don't have worries. Is this normal? Yeah, of course, we had a good laugh about it. And I realized in subsequent satsangs after that, which Mr. Puri used to give, he likes to mention this as well, that some people actually, once they got the deal, they start to worry about whether the deal is working. So this is a kind of experience I had with Master. And this kind of deal is such a beautiful deal that you will not find it anywhere else. And it is based on living faith. And that's pretty much the first time I heard what a living faith is. I mean, I've heard of faith, I've heard of blind faith. But what is this living faith? A living faith is something where you take the first leap of faith, and then the master actually helps you build a faith based on coincidences, through experiences with him. And you build your faith through it. It's no longer just blind faith. And I started to recall some of the experiences I had before I actually met the master, through different other groups of spiritual groups, where people would actually ask, we are praying to God. We are in so much of hurt and everything. We are crying, we are asking for help. Why doesn't the Creator hear our prayers and help us? And this spiritual group is based on, surrendering. You surrender everything to to the divine will, and it happens. And someone said this actually, if you go to a doctor with a cut in your hand, and you keep holding on to the cut, and you ask the doctor to look at it and fix you, he's not going to be able to do it until you actually release your hand and ask him your wound or your injury to look at. If you're going to keep holding on to your injury and keep crying, no matter how much you cry and how much you ask for help, you're not going to let the doctor help you. It's of a similar theory here, in a way. You should give up all of your worries and the master will help. Now, I thought after that, things would get easier. Of course, master has this planned out perfectly for me anyway. And through little experiences, I started to get this faith that I'm talking about, this living faith. I would go for big presentations with some of the top management, and I'm required to talk, and I'll be having butterflies in my stomach and everything. And what I do is I'll tell master, please take over. You do the presentation and you do the talking. And he would. It's actually a very strange feeling to have the master to do your work. And the kicker is when everybody else started to come to me and say, that was a beautiful presentation. You are a very good talker. Your talking is so smooth. and I wish I could say that wasn't me. And I'm like, did they hear the right person? I mean, I don't recall talking like that, but the feedback that I got was extremely different and definitely not something that I expected. And this went on to so many other aspects of life, and I've learned to actually let go of my worries about uncertainty, the fear that comes with it, and just let the master's hand actually work through this. And then, of course, you go through all of these small little faith-building events and experiences, coincidences. And if you try to tell anybody else, no matter how much you put it, even now when I'm telling you, it just seems like pure coincidence. It's very hard to explain master's hand in it. And then you come to a point where you have the big ticket items coming in, all the big worries and problems in life. And you start, okay, master, please take care of it, And then you go on, and somewhere in the middle of the night, you wake up. Does master have actually enough details to deal with it? Should I remind him? Should I explain to him what my problems were? Now that means the deal is off actually. I mean, master has even talked about it in his Satsang and said, when you give it to, you are not giving a single problem to the master. You're not saying, handle this problem for me and I will give you all the happiness. You are giving all your worries, all your troubles and all your problems to the master and he handles it. It starts from there and it ends there itself. He takes over completely. And that took me some time to actually get that going, because it's not easy for us as a devotee to understand that and put that into practice, especially if you're not seeing the radiant form of the master. You don't actually see the master working behind all of this. So I went through all of that exercise, and when you go through this, the key word is actually surrender. Master actually talks about this quite a bit in his videos. If you look up in YouTube, you'll probably find it. And he probably brought up an excerpt from the Granth Sahib as well, that when you surrender to the master, or when you surrender to the Sadguru, and I think the keyword is also Sadguru, not just any master, but a perfect living master, you can live life as normally as you can after that, and he takes over everything. And your part is only the surrender part. And everything else he does, he builds the faith for you, he gives you love, and then you have devotion, you become a devotee. And I realize all of this happening in the background, and I know that things are changing. The real kicker was, when family members start to notice the difference. and you know that they have been with you the entire time, and they start looking at the changes you have. And then I have my wife sometimes ask me, "Wait, how do you not worry? How do you just give it up to the master?" I say, "I don't know. I just give it up." It sounds so simple, and yet it's actually a really hard thing to do, actually, you know. And there was once I had to do some work. So, usually master says, if you give it up to your master and let him do even your work for you, he will do it for you. And I'm like, I've got to test this out, actually. And I tried that. And I remembered my wife walking into the room, looking at me and said, "Something is wrong. This is not you." Because I worked for a week straight. I started at 7 a.m., only came out for toilet breaks and probably food breaks. And I worked till like 2, 3 a.m. in the morning, and this just went on. And I wasn't feeling tired. And she's like, "You are not so hardworking. Something is wrong with you. This is not you." So these are some of the changes that I see when I actually pass it on to the master, actually. And I also got something from my mom as well. So I was just saying something the other day. Work is really stressful. And then she just turned and looked at me and she's like, "You are the most stress-free person I've ever seen in my life." And this is coming from my mom, who has seen me grow up, and she knows I'm not this kind of person, and I like to overthink a lot of things, by the way. And for her to actually notice this change and actually tell me that means a lot of things. And this happens at work also. They ask me, "How are you so zen about everything?" And I'm in my mind, I'm saying, I wish I could tell you this is my master. I do have master's picture in my desk and everything. To some people, I do tell them that this is my master, but not everybody is very receptive of it, especially in the science-based workplace that I have, actually. And they can sense this change in me as well, and how I deal with things. They have seen me go through so many huge hurdles and everything, and I'm like, we'll get to it when we get there. And they just can't pick out and understand how I can be so calm about it. And of course, the reason I can be so calm about it is because of master. And what really helped me a lot was a special mantra that actually, not the Simran, a special mantra that master gave. He actually talked about this and said this mantra in the Satsangs, actually. It's a 2-word mantra. So what? That is one of the best mantras you could actually have, and you could trivialize everything that goes on in your life and reduce it to simple nothingness. Of course, it was very helpful to annoy my wife as well. Anything she says, I'll say this, so what? And she just can't understand how I could be so carefree about it. So yeah, so I think, like what Master said, people don't really understand what a master really is. He can do anything and everything, and he does everything from inside you if you allow him to do it. And I had some first-hand experience in doing this, and it works in hand with faith. You have to have that living faith when you are actually in this part. So this is a short experience that I had with the master, and I hope you enjoyed my sharing with the master, sharing with all of you about my master. So thank you. So Nick, do you want to take over?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Saravanan. It's so lovely to hear the grace and blessings flowing through you. It's really inspiring and encouraging to live life the same way, because we all get thrown curveballs all the time. So yeah, as you say, the best thing to do is just leave it to the master. You did mention living faith, and I was thinking last night, oh gee, same position issue. What should I say? I'm also kind of introverted person. I work as a designer and an artist, so I don't kind of enjoy big crowds of people. But coincidentally, what you said kind of relays very well, follows on from a story I'd like to share about building faith. The mind always will have like a question of, oh, is this really a perfect living master I'm dealing with? And if he is in touch with Sat Purush, surely like miracles will happen. Even Mr Puri talks in his satsangs the stories where he used to test the great master, and at some point the great master's response was, okay, are you gonna keep testing me, or actually start listening to what I'm saying? So yeah, this is a story. Lina and I, a number of years ago, we were living close to Brisbane, and we went in for a Diwali celebration in the city, and that's for people that don't know, or you guys could probably explain it better, but it's a big celebration. There were lots of like Indian groups. There's actually even a tent on Santmat, believe it or not. But we went there because we wanted to hear the music and enjoy the food and just make a nice day of it. So when we got there, we were looking around and they had a raffle prize. And the first prize was a free ticket to India. And Lina's like, oh, well, we should like buy tickets, because obviously we would love to go to India and see Mr Puri when he's there. So we go to the booth, and it's like you get 3 tickets for $5 or something. So I wrote the names and the phone number down. So I bought 3 for myself, 3 for Lina, and I think she went somewhere else. So then I came back and she said, oh no, you've got to buy 3 more for Mr Puri. So it's 3 for us and 3 each for us and 3 for him. So I was like, okay, I'll do it later. And there's some music on the stage, and just instantly this voice in me said, go now, like go now, buy the tickets. And so I went to the booth, and I actually wrote Mr Puri, MRPURI, and my phone number. And then I came back and I gave Lina the tickets, and so she held on to them. So we had 9 altogether. Anyway, went back home. We actually, I think we left early because we weren't living in the city, so we wanted to get back before it was dark. So we weren't there for when they drew the prize. But a week passed and didn't hear anything of it. And I think we even said, oh, well, we must have not won anything. And at the same time, we were packing up. And actually driving to Sydney that day. We had some work lined up down there. So we like packed up the house, got everything ready, because we're going to be away for a couple of months. And we were driving, we left. I don't know, I can't remember how long we were gone for. Like I started leaving, maybe it's like under an hour, say. And then I get a phone call. And I answered the call, and it's like, is that Mr Puri? I'm like, first of all, in shock, like, who's asking, who's calling me for Mr Puri? Like, but then I remembered, oh, maybe it's that raffle prize. It's congratulations, you won first prize. I was like, oh, cool. He said, yeah. And then I explained the story. Well, actually, I'm not Mr Puri, but I just wrote his name because I want to see him. And he said, who is he? And I said, oh, he's kind of like an uncle to me, because I didn't want to go too much into it. But anyway, he then explained, it's kind of, there's a lot of terms and conditions to claim the prize. He said, you have to hand in your ticket within a week for it to be valid. And then come in and because they got kind of sponsored by airline. So, yeah, we had to, like go get the ticket. But then we were driving, we packed up, and it's like, where's the ticket? Like, we want to claim the prize, and we were racking our brains. Like, we looked in the car, and it wasn't in there. And then we're like, oh, okay. Lena, I think Lena had an idea where it was, but we ended up driving back. So it's quite a long drive from Brisbane to Sydney, like it could at least a day's drive. So we thought, oh, we'll have to drive back now. So we drove back, got to the house, and eventually we found the tickets. And then I rang the guy, said, yeah, we got the tickets. They said, okay, just send me a photo for now. You don't actually have to come in because you've got them. Just send me a photo. Then when you get back to Brisbane, we'll go through it. So yeah, then it was like, okay, we've got to get back to Sydney. So at some point, not far, I think I had to stop like for a toilet break, got back in the car and drove off. And I thought, I just got to look at how far we've got to drive. So where I'd stopped, I put in the exact address of where we were going, the destination, and it was exactly 888 kilometers. And I remember when I saw that number that I had heard that number 8 is Mr. Puri's favorite number. And it was, it was like all these kind of coincidental events were happening. So yeah, that's kind of like the story. Yeah, you see, yeah, you sort of do see the hand in the master and in life once you're initiated. Even last week in the Bandara celebration, Cezary Ji brought up a few paragraphs in Mr. Puri's book, Anatomy of Consciousness, that when you are initiated, the master burns all the karma, even pralab karma, like the destiny karma of this life, and he just tops up a little bit just so that you continue this life to do what you got to do to fulfill the allocated breaths you have on here, but then he takes care of the rest. So yeah, that's just a bit of a story that for me, like maybe it's for the mind to trust and have faith, but it's kind of like an external events that I think, like Lena and I talk about, like the master kind of like in the movie Inception can kind of move the cities and stuff to kind of fit your destination. So we often see this, like we're doing something and it's like, yeah, that's it's kind of like a simulation. You start to see in this world these patterns. But anyway, kind of going on to another subject here. Yeah, so I guess, yeah, maybe Pranay, you want to say something else?
So Nick, Sarvanan brought up two points. He brought up living faith, and he also spoke about the deal. Coming back to the time I was initiated, 23rd October 2019. In fact, July 16 was the first time Master came into my life. It was the first time I heard about Sant Mat. So this gentleman changed the entire outlook of the literature. I haven't heard. The background was different. So the first meeting, I had an option in October 19th. Cezary Ji and Grace Ji were private guests of the master then, and they gave me an option. If you ask for initiation, you go again a private meeting. If you ask for private meeting, you can't ask for initiation. What kind of option is that? And it was grueling. They grilled me for half an hour. You eat this, you eat that. I just hope I made past the first few people before I got to master. But then the experience, of course, meeting with Mr. Puri is a private one, and it's memorable. I've written it down, but at some point I forgot about the deal basically, and it's not the specific deal where Master says about the worries, etc., but a deal nonetheless. A very private moment where, because you have to ask the master. That's what I believe. I mean, master knows everything, but the to change the course, it has to come from within. And I remember this was after the event, the daily events of all the cities took place. The China trip got cancelled, and hence there was this extended event in the industry confederation of industries, the seminar hall. I remember sitting down with Cezary Ji, and I was like, oh, I think I'm not going to get another meeting. And before that, he said, "Oh, you didn't take the deal." Like, no, I mean, I've been trying. I've been writing to Master and also Isha India. Then, and they said, "No, you're not going to get a meeting. You already had a initiation interview, and differences for newcomers, etc." It was breaking my head, and luckily, I wrote an email, and I think Cezary Ji said, "Why don't you just write to the master in terms of asking for an interview or something that way?" And he can override all systems. So whatever software system these Sevadas had, and he can do whatever he wants. That's what I thought. And in fact, a long time ago, I really figured out that Cezary Ji on my behalf had written to Master saying that the so-and-so seeker wants to have a meeting with you. And Master replied to Cezary Ji by SMS, and he said, I will meet him for so-and-so time. So at the same time, I guess I also received a reply from Master saying that you come and meet me for lunch so-and-so time and this evening. So that at that point in time, everybody was taken aback. They said, first of all, how is this even possible? What did you do? But then I composed myself. I was taken into, this was a group lunch meeting, and 5 at a time, open hall. I was put into a family, non-English speaking family, 4 of them along with myself. Master in front of me, I'm on my knees almost, and I say what I have to say. And he said, done. Just that, and done. And he said a few words. He put his hands, his firm hands on my head, and it was chill. I could still remember the pressure applied by the little fingers, and he pressed thrice. And at that moment, I didn't know what I asked for. At the same time, I really didn't know what happened. But that was my experience of the deal. And I'm at that point, I was very, very fortunate that I didn't feel left out, because this is a very one-on-one. I mean, from my experience, is a one-on-one kind of a it's not a transaction, a one-on-one kind of, it's between the master and the disciple. So that's the thing about the deal. Now coming to the faith, especially from India, our concept of a guru, at least from a very young age, is a God man, the one who's in communion with God. Communion with God, who can speak to God, who can speak to the Satpurush, who can speak to the Creator. There's only one God, at least that's where I come from. That's what I believe. And that one power, the top, the Guru, and before meeting Mr Puri, that is. And initially, of course, the first drishti itself of Master, I was at his feet. Something happened, and I guess I shared this the last time. But at that point too, the mind does ask questions. Oh, is this guy really? Or is this guy really this? And that's where the faith can be shaky. I remember times where a lot of things happen. I can remember one very stark incident where fast forward December holidays in Chicago, I decided I have to meet Master. I mean, I applied for US visa. I had no interest in America prior to meeting Mr. Puri. And before he got to India, I had applied for the visa. And I said, okay, now he's blessed me with some money. I'm just to make it and come back. And I'm going to meet him. At that point, I had to read a lot of material and literature on Sant Mat. Sant Mat, talking about books where Sar Bachan, the prose, poetry, the spiritual letters, the Anurag Saga. So I was like, I was in a mental role, just reading the flight, taking my phone, just flipping the Anurag Saga, the parts of Kal, the different parts of the mind, the Kal Niranjan. Anurag Saga is basically a book written by Kabir, which translates to the ocean of love. And there was this particular paragraph where they speak about the different parts of the Kal after your initiation, and of course this stuck. I don't know what happened, but fast forward, I was meeting the second day of the December celebration in 2019 in Chicago, Palatine, the Harper College, beautiful satsang. I was seated right in front. There's this very old lady seated beside me, and she apparently knew the master since he got to America. And she said she was family friends, and this was between the morning and the evening session between lunch. That's a lunch break. And I was really into it. She was showing me photographs, very old photographs of Mr. Puri. Beautiful photographs. Oh my gosh, he was so handsome and when he was so young. And in America, he had this basket of sweets. He was distributing. I guess he had this work in the 70s and 80s. I'm not sure when, but these were very old photographs. He was very convincing. She said, "I knew the family. I knew this. I knew that." And she said, "Oh, Pranay, I mean, your name is Pranay. You must be very young. Oh, you came all the way from India just for this." Really, whatever Master said is true, that people from the east will come to the west. I mean, that's what that's what Master used to say. But tell me, Pranay, do you really consider Mr. Ishwar Puri a perfect living master? I was like, what do you mean? No, because I'm very good friends with the wife, Santoshi. I didn't know Master's wife back then. She had left the body prior to me even meeting the master. I mean, that's a separate thing. But she says, Pranay, even the wife told me that she doesn't consider the Mr. Puri. Mr. Puri's own wife did not consider Mr. Puri the master. And I was heartbroken at those words. And I was so concerned. I'm like, what did I hear? And that's when my eyes went to the eyes, basically the corner of the eyes, and there was a mole in the eyes. So it flashed back to the time where I was reading the Anurag Saga, where they describe the features of Kal. I mean, I don't know why I read that book, that particular page, but it stuck to me. That particular page stuck, and the description was exactly the same. I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? what did I just witness? And that's when I immediately took my phone. I didn't listen to them anymore. And of course, they spoke a few other things with friends. I mean, I'm sure Grace Ji and Cezary Ji know what I'm talking about. But there's a few other things were spoken. I wrote to Master, and I was like, Master, this is what exactly narrated the whole story. And I sent an email to him. Master comes out an hour later after lunch, and he starts off the satsang. The second day, I think the afternoon, he's like, "Oh, I would recommend everybody reading the Anurag Saga." And he says a couple of sentences to that, and that's when I was happy that Master read my email, even though he didn't reply to it. But then I was so it was such a huge relief, because especially earlier on, when the faith can, earlier on, at least when your the consciousness and the mind is a little bit shaky. I mean, we all go through steps. I've gone through a few steps in that sense, and it was a huge relief. And I said, "Oh, Master, this is such a relief." And all of us think that everybody in the Sangat are good. That this is my experience, and this taught me that not everybody are the same. Not everybody. I mean, I wouldn't say that I speak highly of myself, though. But when you say that not everybody go to the master for master, there we talk about love. We talk about unconditional love for the master. It's not the same. People do not have the same intentions. This experience actually taught me that there will be. I mean, every sangat, I mean, every perfect living master. I mean, it's written in the Anurag Saga that the mind, the Kal Niranjan, the lack of a better word, will try its best to steer us away from the path, even after initiation. I mean, we think that the test stop after initiation. It doesn't, but even after initiation it does. Excuse me. So this was an experience, and I was talking to Nick a couple of days ago, and I was telling him that Nick, when Master came to India the last time in 2020 February, I think the last satsang in Bombay, I was complaining to Master within that I've written so many emails, I've received only very few replies. I mean within, so I could count it, the number of replies by email. And there's this particular lady in who's initiated for 3-4 years. He happens to share, telling me that she's initiated 3-4 years, written to Master each time, and hasn't received a single reply. I was like, whoa, this is something that I need to be fortunate that at least that Master had replied to at least a few queries and a few emails. And Nick had something private and personal to share about his take on that. But then I guess I was very fortunate at that point in time. In fact, day before yesterday, my mother asked me, at what point did you figure out that the master is Satpurush? Because when I started off this point, when I started speaking, I said it took me a while to. I thought masters, at least gurus, were God men, like could speak to God. So I actually had to wait for a while and think, not think, but basically I was like, oh, I was taken aback by the question. I was looking on top. I'm like, wow, that's a good question. But there was a specific point, and that happened after the December holidays when, of course, there's a private personal experience that had to do with an experience in flesh, looking at the master. I don't know what happened, that the eyes were different. It was a different color. It wasn't green. It wasn't blue. It wasn't none of the colors, basically. I'm like, what did I just look into Master's eyes? Like, what is that? And it didn't leave me then. I was taken aback. I stayed back in Chicago, downtown, went back to my sister's place in Novi, Michigan. And I was home alone. And that's at that point, I shared that I wrote to Master, and I don't know what I'd literally written down, but at that point, the consciousness understood that the highest consciousness, the God or the Murshabi Kamal, or the Master or Satpurush, is the master. I mean, Mr. Puri, my master. And I'd written down a different email, and I was in tears. And what did I just experience? What is this path? Why am I like this? I need to I need to stop all my work and then follow this man for the next 1 or 2 years. I need to budget my allowances to just meet him at every possible time. This is at that first realization that Master Satpurush, God, the lack of a better word, one. And in fact, I had this is again a private story where we were friends with Cezary Ji and Grace Ji. We were exchanging messages, pleasantries like hello, good evening, happy new year, those kind of things. And I happened to send them a message saying that I'm heading back to India on Jan 6th, 2020. And I mean, I didn't know about the entire Las Vegas thing. This was hush hush. Cezary Ji speaks about a long time and so many times about the New Year 2020, Las Vegas. It's on the website, ishwarpurisamsmad.com website about the Las Vegas thing. Nothing was spoken, and Cezary Ji, if I remember right, replied to the message saying, I was with the master, we were with the master, he showed me your email, he was very happy, he's very happy with you. And apparently master actually showed Cezary Ji the email that I'd written, and like, just see it. And I was like, whoa, I mean, I need to, this merits a call. And I got onto a conference call, WhatsApp call, excuse me. Sorry. I got onto a call, and Cezary Ji was like, oh, I mean, not giving out too many details. It's just like I was ecstatic because I didn't know I existed. I didn't know Master knew me, right? Because he knew, he met a lot of people. He was a hotshot, hotshot in the sense in the government, IS officer, many people doing this work for so many years, a lot of people meeting him. I just met him a few months ago. And the fact that he showed the email itself, or read the email, I was on cloud 9. I was on cloud 9 for many days that day, and so at that point, I look back, and there's this other incident where fast forward in February, where Master in fact called my name. I said Pranay. He just, while walking by, he tapped my back and he said a few words, and he started off with Pranay. And that's another time when I felt that I was on cloud 9, because I said, oh, Satpurush knows my name, at least in the worldly sense, which is it's a big deal for me. It's a huge deal, knowing that that I exist, in the sense where because in this path, as per my experience, I don't feel that I had, like many of us, I mean, no merit in terms of having this grace of the master. Cezary Ji, at some point, when we were talking together, he just said, master picking you up is akin to him walking on a beach, and you're this small, minute particle of sand, and he takes you up as a particle of sand, and he says, "Oh, okay." Out of many, I mean, this is just a kind of figure of speech. Out of the many, he decides to have pity and find you, in the lack of a better word. And I completely agree, because without the grace of the totality or God or Master, there is no, I don't think even the understanding of what the Master is could come into picture. I remember many times where I guess, yeah, I think I'll let someone else speak now. Nick, do you want to, or Sarvana, do you want to catch, want to say something else? Or
Thanks, Bruno. Fernand, do you want to say something, or should we have a break now?
Maybe after the break, is Mr. Cezary coming in?
we
Yes,
have another 10 minutes.
Okay.
We have another 10 minutes, but yeah, one more thing, I think I can share one more point where on these lines about we all make up questions in the mind what to ask the Master before the meeting. An offshoot to the topic where we're talking about the deal we make with the Master, and what kind of deal, etc. And to give a context, Master speaks about his mother-in-law, where Master Charan Singh visited their house back in Bias, and Master was in communion with himself, and he decided to ask the mother-in-law, Master's mother-in-law, Master Mr Puri's mother-in-law, for anything. And this is on the internet. So to make it quick, the mother-in-law thought about the son in US, or the person who had to give money and this and that. And towards the end, Mr. Puri said, when Charan Singh asked you for this, why didn't you ask for the Master himself? Why did you ask for Satpurush? Why didn't you ask for God, for the truth? Why didn't you ask for the Master? And this is a very old video of Master narrating the story, I guess, in the 1980s. So at some point, I kept this in mind, and I said, okay, if Master at any point in time, by any coincidence, comes in front in person and says, Pranay, what do you want from me? And I'm going to have my answer straight. So this was fixed in my mind. I'm like, okay, this is the next thing, let it happen. So in fact, it happened. In the last visit in 2020 February, and my seva was to organize group interviews, both in Delhi and in Mumbai. So I had decided to take my group interview. Everyone's given a chance, 5 at a time. And I decided to take mine in not towards the end, to where they say the trustees or the organizers doing it, but one before that. And so I said, okay, this is the last interview, and I mean, I didn't know it was the last time and the last interview, group private interview. It was a closed room. It's a nice conference room, and this was a COVID restrictions had taken place. There were instructions not to touch the Master, not to go near him, etc. People were wearing gloves. I remember, I got back from America on Jan 6th, and I'm like, this was all new. I mean, like February, like what the hell? Sorry about the language, but what about COVID? But and that private meeting was a very different. I had the opportunity to see Master speak to different groups, but at that point, Master was looked at me and of course everybody else, but when he looked at me, he said, what can I do for you? What seva can I do for you? This imprint was in my mind, and I tried to open my mouth, literally tried to open my mouth. Master was looking at me and looking at my forehead, looking at me, smiling. I couldn't open my mouth. I mean, voluntarily, I couldn't open my mouth. It was fixed, it was glued. I knew what I had to say. My mind was saying it, this, that. I was just trying to open my mouth, we couldn't. I was just smiling. I was like, okay, I give up. But then I was like, what is this guy even doing? I didn't know this was impossible. But then Master puts out his hand, reaches forward, and I go reach forward and give my hand to him, and he just nods his head, and like, okay, I mean, there goes the COVID restriction for it. But I was taken aback because the instructions were not to go anywhere near the master, not to, because he's of age. He's a human being, and no one knew about what COVID was at that point in time. Even I didn't know about it, but that was a very surreal experience. The prasad, he blessed it individually and said this. In fact, said, do not finish it immediately. Have very, very little at a time. This is a very special prasad. To everybody, but he handed it over individually. But that was a very surreal experience where of the master, in fact. So yeah, I think that's it for now. Nick, would you want to say something before we break for?
Thanks for sharing, Pranay. I think because it's almost break time, I won't start a new story, if that's okay. Unless Saravanan wanted to share something.
I could just say something similar to what Pranay said. You could have built up any amount of preparation and get a list of things ready when you want to meet the master, and usually it happens quite the opposite, actually. I'll just probably share this one little story that I have. This, I think, was in, I can't remember which year it was, but it was in Delhi. Master was doing a one-day interview, and of course, while waiting for my turn, I've already decided, okay, I'm just gonna go in, and in typical Indian fashion, I'm just gonna fall at his feet and say, take me home, and probably give him a list of things that I wanted him to do for me. And you make all of these plans, and then when it was my turn, and I was ready to go in, and the door was just opening, and I was getting ready to do whatever I planned for. And Master did something that really shocked me. He didn't wait for me to do anything. Instead, he got up and he said, Saravanan, my best friend, you have come all the way over to India, and just totally threw me off my game. And I just stood there and, okay, what do I do now? He took one step before whatever I did and went on to greet me before that. And I could see people outside were a bit shocked as well. Like, and he was, having difficulty walking at the time. People and the Satsangis didn't allow people to come too close to him, touch his feet, because he was having some difficulty walking. And here the master got up from his seat, like so instantly. It's such a fast action, and he said, Sir, you, my best friend, you've come all the way from Singapore to see me, and that just totally killed whatever I had in plan. And usually this thing happens, when you are confronted with the love and the master, in the presence of the master, you actually forget about yourself. Whatever your mind, actually, in truth, it's your mind that's been planning all of these things, just melts away, and suddenly something in you is brought out, and that is probably that devotion and love that you are reacting to whatever you're getting from the master, which is probably love as well. And I thought I'll share this as well, because after that I've realized I do not never make any list I've stopped making lists. I've stopped preparing for my interviews, and much later I realized, I actually don't have anything to ask. Actually, I spend usually the interview time just to be with him, just to share a few words as well. Nick, do we still have time? I mean, I could go on if
Oh
we
yeah,
still have time.
if you want, keep going.
Oh, okay. So I maybe I'll touch back to, previously in Bandara I shared that when the master has accepted you, he has taken over everything, it is similar to what I talked about earlier as well with the deal as well. And I remember this when this was in 2014 when he came to Singapore, and I met with him, and every time I open his book, I would find the answers that I need. And Master said, the next time I'll see you, I'll initiate you, do the preparation that you need. And of course and it was over, and I was waiting for him to come back to Singapore again. And this is a very strange experience, because every time I had a question, the answer will pop up. And this was before initiation. It is so instant and it's so strange. There was once even I was talking to my wife about something, and then we just go over the TV, and out of hundreds of videos out there, I'll just click on, and the answer just comes straight out, and I and my wife will look at each other. And at this point of time, I still didn't know who I was dealing with. So I was like, my science-based mind was still trying to come up with reasoning, and I'm like, this is probably a coincidence, but why don't we check it out with the master? Since he said always test it, or if you have a living master, you can check it out with him. So I actually emailed him, just to point out to you, master always replied my email really fast until initiation. After initiation, I never got a reply from him after that. Before initiation, I would get instant replies whenever I emailed him. And so I asked him, I am not initiated yet. I just met you once. But ever since then, I've been getting every question I ask, I've been getting answers, and almost answers in full. And I asked, what is happening? Is this even possible? Like, is this you? Of course, master replied, and doesn't say that it's him. He never said that I'm doing all of this. And all he said was this: when you are accepted by the master, even when you are asked to prepare for initiation, it means the master has accepted you. And when he has accepted you, the guidance starts from there. So you remember, master used to tell us about this story with great master, and the guy was coming in from the village because he had a dream of great master asking him to be initiated or something like that. And he comes all the way to great master and asks for Nam. And great master say, once more, you have been initiated at the point where you actually left the village. And this story kept playing back to me. And I realized that initiation actually is when the master accepts you. It's not when he gives you Simran or the instruction. It's when the master actually accepts you. And guidance actually starts from there. And after initiation, he's always with you. He's always with he's pretty much there with you 24/7. And remember I was talking about the deal that I got from him, and just before I got the deal, something interesting actually happened in 2017 at the Bandara event itself. So when you apply for Bandara, you'll kick off whether you want a private interview with him, and usually what happens is, if you have met the master, you're most likely not gonna see him because there's a lot of people and there's a lot of newcomers, and the numbers are growing, and you probably have to wait till the last day, or you might not get to see him. Probably got to see him another time. And I was actually really, really upset, and I can't explain how come I was so upset. It was almost like a child. I tried asking the organizers whether I could, and they told me that if you have met, you probably won't get to meet him this time, and there's nothing they can do because there's a lot of people. And I was complaining to my wife. I was like, I could understand why I can't meet him, but there's something inside of me that just I couldn't let go. And you could say I was crying, but just without tears, basically. And it was a really hard time for me to accept that I was not going to see my master. And something strange actually happened. Actually, my wife called me the next day, and she said, I had a very strange dream. I dreamt that someone is coming up to you and saying that master will see you. Can you go and check with the organizers again? And so I did. I went to the organizer, and she looked at the list, and then she said, yes, master actually said he will see you. And she looked at me and she asked this question: what's so special about you? Why did he want to see you? And I didn't really answer. I'm actually really happy. I was really upset that I couldn't see him. So now I get to see him, and I could actually ask him for the deal. I was really excited. And when I entered the room to see him, this is what he said to me: miracles happen. You are not supposed to see me today. Everybody said I couldn't see you today because you are not a first timer. But miracles happen, which means the master is listening to you. He heard my cries, and he knows how much I wanted to see him, and he made it happen. And this is something big as well, because when I got the deal, this was a huge what do you call it, a faith building event itself, that the master is inside of you and listening to you. And if you're true about it, if you're really seeking, he actually grants you. So yeah, this was just a little short sharing session that I just wanted to add on to Pranay and Nick's story.
In fact, sorry, Saravanan is being a little too humble with this, but Saravanan had shared a particular story where, I mean, this is private, but towards the end, he said the trip on China, and Master told Saravanan, you know what, I came all the way just to see you. And Saravanan was like, I don't know why Master said that. I'm like, I mean, that's because of Sarvanan's own love. And you can just imagine how great the love for the master or God, or his idea of the seeking of the highest is for Mr. Puri, someone like Mr. Puri, to say something like that brought tears into my eyes. And him going across to the Great Wall and not even marveling at the thing, and he was just looking at people. Saravanan and his friend pushed the cart. So that itself was a very tricky, humbling experience, where the price of love, there's no price, cannot be bought. The key takeaway of even Cezary Ji speaking about the 2020 New Year's Eve, where they spend their time together in private in Las Vegas, for me the takeaway is we cannot buy the master. We cannot buy him. And even at that point in time, it could have been the master himself. I mean, Cezary Ji had spoken a couple of times. He said, a lot of people who wanted to be with me today, and I'm with you. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, I'm sorry. But for me, the takeaway is for God, for the Lord, for Satpurush, for Master, to see you, you need to have love for him. It's not the billions of dollars. And in fact, there were a few billionaires who had scheduled a meeting a few days later, And when they schedule a few days later, and you can't buy Master's love, it's not for sale. So that even in this, I was talking with Nick at some point, and when we pray, I mean, I used to pray before coming onto the path. When we visit the temples, when we used to go to, we always ask God for something. Oh, if you do this, I'll do that for you. If you do this for me, I'll do that for you. It's a transaction. And how do we even go to God for Himself, or do we go to Master for himself, not for what He gives? That's something I've been asking myself, and even initially, when I mean, I don't know if I'm a bit shallow, where, or I was in the worldly sense, we were going through a lot of things. I mean, personally, and one by one, I could see it untangle. I mean, by His grace. But then, do you really love the Master for Him? There was this particular story where there's a king, and it's a very short story. There's a king. He threw a huge fair, a festival for his people in a village, and he was a very rich king. And the rich king had jewels and for distributed free, items, groceries, and food. So the people of the village came and took whatever they went and left. I mean, left with whatever, satisfied with whatever they could grab hands on. But there was only one guy who looked at all the beautiful jewels that was on display and could be taken. And there was only one guy who actually asked himself, if the king is so great that he can provide so many things to his subjects, I want to see the king himself. And so when he went to the palace, the guards were taken aback because there were not many. I mean, everybody took whatever they want and left. But there was this guy, and he was taken straight to the king's chamber, and the king was so happy that there was at least one who thought about the king. And I sometimes ask myself, when I'm going through the worldly challenges and the even the seeking within, even spiritually, am I really surrendered to God, to my Master? So if I do really the unconditional, the word unconditional has to go both ways, but I'm trying my best at times where do you really love our Master despite Him giving and not giving? And that itself is something that I asked myself at least earlier on, and I take a reality check once in a while. The unconditional love has to be both ways. Master does have unconditional love, but do we have unconditional love for the Master? Do we take Him for granted? So yeah, this is something I had to share on the offshoot of what Saravanan just mentioned. And I guess we can take a short break now. I can see Cezary Ji joined us. Nick?
Yes, he's joined.
Radha Swami. Welcome, friends. This is the first satsang in 2023. So this is a very special satsang. It's the first one. It's January. On the website we have posted dates for 12 satsangs, one satsang each month. Originally, my plan was to speak at the Bandara, Great Master Bandara, April the 2nd, and on Bandara, December 23rd, 2023. and I was considering to remain silent for a few months. So I asked Pranay, Nick, and Delina, Sarvanan to do the satsangs for January, February, March, at least. Today, a few hours ago, I got a message to speak. And I got some information I should relate to you. So things change. So I sent a message to Nick about this. Well, thank all of you for joining the satsang. These are very special satsangs. These are very special satsangs, and Mr Puri Santmat is a very special group. I was reflecting on this lately, also based on things Master revealed to me. Many things been revealed to me. So it's been 2 years now. So is the time to change the format of the satsang. I appreciate everyone who is participating in the satsang for the last 2 years. Without you, this will not work. So special blessings to everyone who is at this satsang today. You have the grace of the Master. My Master and Master of many of you, Mr. Puri and the Great Master. Many will say this is just a show. Many will say we go through the life and this is just a show. It doesn't matter really. We all play the role like we are actors. Let me reveal something to you today. This is not the show. This is just a trick. Masters will play on you. So I personally take this very seriously. Everything I do for my master, I take this very seriously. No part where I do or Grace does is a show. This is as real as it gets. And we were with the master once in Las Vegas. And we're sitting by the table, Grace, Master and I, at the time, just, and the Masters said, it's all just a game. And I'm just like sitting looking. I mean, we are like in Las Vegas, right? It's all, he says it's all just a game. There's like hundreds, thousands of people playing all over around the slot machines, you know. We were in like this little restaurant where that is very interesting. So sometimes we might think that this is just a game. And from one point of view, you may say that. But this is very serious game. Decisions you make in this life, these are most important decisions you probably ever made. These are most important decisions I ever made. Even speaking from the mind perspective. So I would like to share a few things with you. In this satsangs, with you who are attending this satsang, I would like to share a few things with you. This may help you realize what is really going on and where are you right now as we speak.